So Ryan Garcia underperforms, maybe overpromises, but ultimately Ryan just didn't look good in there. I feel like he was very tentative. I didn't know, what exactly was going on with him. I felt he wasn't a busy fighter. He wasn't eager to land shots. I guess it had something to do with the fact that he was cracked early in the fight, so it allowed Rolly to kind of gain momentum and say, that there's more where that came from. Once he landed that, he threw a right hand, threw a left hook, and then followed it up with another left hook, and that's what dropped Ryan Garcia. And Ryan wasn't expecting it. He didn't think Rolly was capable of throwing, multiple punches, combinations, and ultimately setting himself up to get Ryan off balance. Ryan's a very straight-up fighter. If you notice, it's a problem that they've been talking about ever since he turned pro. Ultimately, it's been one of his biggest flaws where, he's not really on a steady base. When you're fighting, obviously you want a guy to be a little bit more steady, a better foundation when it comes to their lower body, and Ryan his legs are too close together. He's very straight up in these moments, and ultimately he just was gun shy. He didn't want to pull the trigger because it seemed like he knew that if Rolly were to land something again, if Ryan gets overzealous, gets a little overconfident, that Rolly would be there to land something significant. But Ryan definitely underperformed and shocked a lot of us. We thought that the Ostarine wasn't really instrumental. A lot of people thought that it was an insignificant amount, and judging from this outing that Ryan Garcia had, being at all the fight week events, I could tell you, Ryan didn't really look like how he looked at, against Devin Haney. He didn't sound the same. He didn't look the same. He didn't have that same intensity that he had last year in April. So that tells me, maybe it was the PEDs. It probably was the PEDs that gave Ryan Garcia that edge, because he just looked like a completely different person, not even just as a fighter. He just looked like a different guy in there. And ultimately, against Rolly Romero, I thought that a guy that started the sport later, and ultimately Ryan being an amateur 16-time national champion, that experience would make a difference in the fight, but ultimately it didn't. Rolly gained the respect of Ryan Garcia early. He was physically stronger. I don't think that Ryan Garcia belongs at 147. I think he should fight at 140. He felt a legitimate 147 pounder in there. And I think something that Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia both had in common in terms of, their moves up in weight. They both moved up in weight. Devin and Ryan both moved up from 140 for this fight. And it was clear that at a higher weight class, both Devin and Ryan looked like boys amongst men. And I know Devin got the job done, but Jose was stalking him, walking him down at multiple points in the fight. Early on was snapping his head back with the jab. Devin ultimately got the job done, but his output wasn't crazy. And Ryan Garcia's output was incredibly and historically low. And Rolly Romero, a guy that his skill set on paper didn't seem to match up with Ryan Garcia's in the ring, looked much more solid, sharp, and focused than Ryan Garcia did. Ryan you could tell, there's a clip of Ryan Garcia going around on social media of him crying. Very vulnerable moment, but it comes with the sport. I'm sure it pains him to lose, but to put on a performance like that just wasn't, appealing to the crowd. Everybody had high expectations, and everybody was hopeful that Ryan Garcia would put on a show, but he just wasn't able to, like I said, pull the trigger and stay active, because he had to, respect Rolly's power. It was clear and evident that he didn't want to get hit with a shot like that he did in the second round. He got cracked in the second round, so that set the tone for the fight. It made Ryan, question himself, second guess his attacks and his strategy on, getting close to Rolly Romero. Rolly Romero capitalized. He stayed on Ryan Garcia, stayed focused, and closed that distance, made it a very physical fight. He made Ryan Garcia use his strength. Ultimately, Ryan's still a very popular fighter, but his stock definitely took a hit, in this fight, because we were all expecting a great performance from him. That left hook was underutilized. He just had low output throughout the entire fight, where Rolly Romero was a little bit more busy, and it just seemed like Ryan didn't want to do anything in there once he felt the power. Once he felt the power, he stopped throwing entirely for the rest of the fight. Even in the championship rounds, there was no sense of urgency. I have no doubt in my mind that Ryan Garcia knew he was down on the scorecards in the championship rounds, but still failed to, step on the gas even remotely. So that tells me this could be another instance of where, he doesn't love boxing anymore, and, he's dealing with those demons, those those mental health issues, but it was clear and evident that that wasn't the Ryan Garcia that we saw in April. And I think it's fair to assume now, after seeing Ryan Garcia a year after that Devin Haney performance, that the Austrian, the PEDs probably did enhance his performance against Devin because he simply didn't look the same. And, you know, some of that has to do with the fact that he was in there with a natural 147 pounder, no matter what people say, even though Rolly fought at the weight class for the first time, he needed it. And like I said before the fight, Rolly was going to have the punch resistance to take Ryan's left hook in terms of, you know, it would be better. It would be better for him to be hydrated at a weight class where he can feel comfortable and strong and then take a punch. And whenever, you know, Ryan did land jabs, he did land hard shots, Rolly wasn't as phased as we had anticipated because he wasn't as drained. He felt comfortable, he felt strong in there, and basically overwhelmed Ryan Garcia with his physical strength and his power. His punching power was the story of the fight. Ryan, you know, didn't have the output that we expected. He wasn't active enough. His activity rate was low. So that tells me his work rate was low. So that tells me he was afraid of the power at the end of the day. He didn't want to get hit again. And that was the story of the fight. So Ryan Garcia underperforms against Rolly Romero in his comeback fight from that Devin Haney fight. But yeah, it seemed like he wasn't the same fighter, and maybe that is credit to the PEDs. I think that's fair to say now. So we know what we know. We saw Ryan Garcia, and he's not the same fighter without the PEDs. So it is what it is. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you guys thought about this fight, but I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.